Hey friends and everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. I am Frederick, as you know, and I'm happy to have you here today. In this video, we are going to talk about how to implement JWT authentication in clean architecture. I have made a separate video explaining what clean architecture is, so if you actually don't know what clean architecture is, maybe I suggest you watch that video. Also, in this video, I'm going to give you an overview, just a brief of this clean architecture and how to implement this JSON Web Token in clean architecture. Alright, before we dive right into this, if you know you have not subscribed to this channel, then click on that notification bell once you subscribe to receive an update as soon as I do upload new content. Also, like this video, click on that like button to like this video, okay, to help this channel and also support the growth of this channel. I do offer training session to people who are interested in .NET technologies, talking about Blazor, WebAssembly server, Web API, Mary, Blazor hybrid, and a lot. So if you're interested, I have an email in the video description. Check it out and write to me through it. Clean architecture, it is a software design philosophy introduced by Robert C. Martin, and we normally call him as Uncle Bob. It is just a set of principles and patterns that aim to create maintainable, scalable, and testable software by structuring code in a way that separates concerns and dependencies. So we don't do everything together. We put them into basics, we put them into units, and we connect the unit together. That's all about this clean architecture. Put all your code into units and now join this unit together, like chain. That's what we call the separation of concerns and also the dependencies. So each is going to depend on the other one, and at the end of the day, we're going to have the base one. They're going to build this up with the dependencies. Okay. Clean architecture consists of several layers. But in this, we're going to talk about one of the implementation, that is having the entities or the domain, having application layer, having presentation layer, and also the infrastructure layer. 4 layers, and that is what you're going to have a look in this video. Okay, so we're going to create this. Now, we're not going to consume this API or this authentication, JWT authentication in Blazor application. We're not going to do that. I'm going to show you how to implement this JWT authentication in clean architecture. Maybe I know about that one, you know how to do it, isn't it? Yeah, I believe you. You can do that. But if you think you cannot do it, then also let me know. You can put it at the comment section there. And I'm going to have a separate video to consume this architecture that we're going to create, this authentication in the Blazor WebAssembly application. Isn't that nice? Alright, so I'm going to create a new project in here. So click on, make sure you have a Visual Studio 2022 or higher launched, and click on create new project. So this, since you're going to work on the authentication in clean architecture, I would like that to create a solution, blank solution. Let's give it a name. Yes, so demo JWT authentication with clean architecture. You know, if you want to grab the source code, I'll make it available as well, so you can check this video description. Now that is the solution. So actually, I want to add solution to this. Yes, very long, but it makes meaning, isn't it? Okay, so we have it here. When you go to Solution Explorer, you're going to have just your solution name here. Right click on this solution. You're going to add 3 classes, and I'm going to name them separately. So the first one I'm going to choose for C# library, and this is going to be the C# class. Take note, and here we're going to say this is domain. Okay, so we have your domain in here. We're going to create this in .NET 8. Take note. And also, we're going to create another class, and this is going to be application. We're going to have infrastructure, and we're going to have presentation. Okay, so let's see. We're going to, once we have this domain, we're going to add the next project. It is the same class library. So choose that. There's going to be an application. Okay, so this is ready. We're going to create another one. Not this. I click on this solution, click on add new project, and this is going to be infrastructure. So the same class library. So infrastructure. So let's get this created. So we have 3 classes now: application, domain, infrastructure, and we need one more. But this time around, it is not a class. We need a presentation. So this is going to be a new project in here. And we're going to choose Web API. So with this, we know this presentation, but I'm not going to say presentation. I'm going to make it as Web API. Okay, so Web API. And for authentication type, we choose none because we're going to create our own. Then let's click on Create. Yeah, so when we check this one, the presentation of beginning architecture, we have these 4 layers. Now these 4 layers, they are dependent to each other. So when we check this, we have the presentation layer, that is a Web API. We have the infrastructure, we have the domain, and we have the application. What does each mean, or does it do? The presentation layer, as you know, that is a UI. Okay, so this is going to consume the application layer. So let's add this dependencies, add project reference, add this application layer. Okay, now that is it. So the UI or the presentation consumes only the application layer. Okay, aside from that, the infrastructure here is going to consume this application layer because we're going to create an interface in here and we're going to create our repository in the infrastructure. So I click on this, I click on dependencies, add project reference, add the application. And now when it comes to application, it's also going to consume the domain. The domain are the entities. So we right click on this application and add domain. You see, so the domain is independent. It doesn't depend on anyone for survivor. Yes. Okay, now let's start. So once we have this relationship and dependencies issue solved, now that's what we can do. We're going to, let me just clear this, the default class created for each of the model. Then let's check for the application. We also have this. Okay, so now that we have this set, we're going to build the application and install packages, which are the EF-Core tools, EF-Core SQL Server. Okay, these are the 3 packages that we need for now, and we want to do that. Maybe we can also download or use bcrypt to encrypt the password. We're not going to use Identity Manager now. We're going to use our own way to encrypt the password. So we're going to install these 4 packages. Let's get going. So let's build this project first. Let's make sure we install the default NuGet packages needed to run this app. After that, we're going to install these packages. That's right, it is built, succeeded, yeah, and 4 projects succeeded, and that's fine because we have 4 projects in here. Now we're going to install these packages in here. Now what we're going to do here is we go to the infrastructure. That is the data access layer. So that's where we're going to have all our connection to database. Okay. Right click on dependencies and click on add package references. But not this one. Manage NuGet packages, this guy. So we're going to install EF-Core. So click on the browse tab. And now we need EF-Core. So 8.0.2 as I speak, that's the current one. We need tools. Then we need SQL Server. So this is the next one, that is this one. We're going to encrypt the password. So let's install bcrypt. bcrypt.net. This one. Okay, now when we are done, we're going to create a dependency injection, that's a service container. and we need to register in the web API. Now when we register, we're going to also register the service in there and perform migration against the web API, but we're going to select the infrastructure as a default and to run that. So in that, we need to install another package in here to dependencies of the API, and now we need only the EF core .tools. That's all that we need to install. So tools. That's fine. We can close all this because we are done with them. And now let's go and run this, build this again. Yeah, so succeeded. Now we're going to work on the infrastructure because that's where we're going to have our data access. So everything that get connected to database and migration, every stuff is going to be in the infrastructure project. So we're going to create a folder in here, and I'll name this as data access. Maybe data will be okay. We need our models, and this model must come in the domain. So we're going to create this, and I'm going to name this as entities. Now this database entities, we're going to add a class of this, and maybe this is going to be a user. So application user, and now in that, what are some of the properties that we need? So before a user registers our system, we want to have an ID, and this ID is an integer automatically as a primary key. In that, we also need, let's see. Okay, so let me just remove this. We also need name. So we need name. Then we need maybe email address. Email. And the last one, we need password. Okay, so we need these properties in here from every user who wants to register an account with us. ID, going to supply automatically, so we need the name, email, and password. Okay, now when it comes to the data, we're going to create our class, and it's going to be the DB contest. So DB contest. Okay, now the DB contest, since we've installed efcore.sql server, like just the EF core, we can inherit from this DB contest class, and this is coming from EF core. So we install this. We need to create constructor for this one, and I'll pass in this DB contest. Now we need to create a DB set, which is going to be the database table. So application user, and now this is coming from the domain. So with this application user, we're going to have maybe users or something like that. Okay, so that's going to be the table name, and I'm going to use the properties in here to create columns. That's fine. Let's save this. Now let's go to, so once you have this created, we need to set our connection strings in here in the app-setting.json from the API. So in that you can have connection strings, and let's say this is default. I'm going to have server equal to local, referring to my computer, database is equal to JWT with clean architecture. Okay, so I have DB, very long, but it makes sense. Then I have trusted underscore connection, set this to true. The last one is trust server certificate. Certificates, set this to true as well. Yes, that's fine. Done. Now we go back to in here, Solution Explorer. Now, instead of creating or registering the service in here, no, we're going to create dependency injection. So, right on the infrastructure, we're going to add a new folder to this. Now, let's call this dependency injection. The reason why we are doing this is we want this presentation layer is just consuming the application layer. That's the only thing that's going to do. Okay, and we're going to register a service from this. Aside from registering the service from the infrastructure and also consuming the application, it's not going to do anything. So anytime that you want to change that presentation layer, you can change it without having to go through a lot of stress, because what you're doing here is you need only your controllers in here, and that is all. You're going to create everything in between the infrastructure and that application. So this is going to be a consumer. Consumes it, and off you go. So in here, we're going to create a class, and maybe we can name this as service container. For this service container, we're going to create a class in here and now register this. And now this class is going to be a static class. So you're going to have a static container, and it's going to be public. In that, we need to create a class in here as a static, and whereby this we need to pass in the iService collection. So I call this as infrastructure services, and I'm making this as an explicit. So I'm passing in this iService collection, creating that service, and I'll pass in iConfiguration so I can retrieve the connection strings. Okay. Now in here, I need my AppDB context connection, and that is what I'm doing in here. You can see the AppDB class that we created from the same layer, and now we're not going to use SQLite. We're going to use SQL Server. And now the name here, do you remember? Is default. Okay. Then we're going to specify the lifetime here as scope and application to create an instance for the whole application. Okay, now once you're done, we need to register service in here. But before we do that, let's return services. Okay, now we're going to remove all this. Let's go to, so this is what we need to consume in the application layer. Now let's go to, not in the presentation layer, sorry, don't want to confuse you today. Let's go to the API, and now from the program, we need to add this. But before we do that, then we need to consume this infrastructure in here once for the service. Okay, so this is what we can do. Dependency is going to add project reference, and you're going to add the infrastructure in here. And now with the infrastructure, the session that we're going to inject here, we're going to use here, it is only for this service that we created. So here we're going to say builder.services.infrastructure. But before we do this, we need to include the project itself. So we say using an infrastructure dot dependency injection. And now in here, we can have access to infrastructure service dot infrastructure service. And now this needs configuration, so we're going to say builder.configuration. Yes, that is all. So now once you have this, we have our connection registered. Maybe you can cross check and see if it is the same from here. Yes, same. We save that. And this, alright, so we're going to perform database migration. Before this, let's build this. Succeeded. Now we're going to perform migration. So let's go to, an API is supposed to be the startup project. Click on the output, not the output, the package manager console. Now we're going to choose the infrastructure, and I say add migration. This is first. So build succeeded. Now let's wait for the file to get created. So the file is created. Update database. This is done. Very simple one. So we have a database with one table known as users. Only one, because we created one. Okay. And now this table has the following columns: ID, name, email, and password. Okay. Let's go to solution. And in that, we need to create a repo for this. But before we do that, we go to application. And then in here, we're going to create our DTOs. So let's create a folder. Name it as DTOs. With this DTO, we're going to add user, so a class. Now let me say this is maybe register user DTO. In terms of registration, what do I need? We go to the same application user model, and then in here, I'm going to copy everything, and I'm going to paste it in here. Just I'm going to exclude the name, the ID, because I don't need ID is going to be provided automatically, so there's no need to add the ID. Let's make this as public. Okay, we can also set this as a record, so we can just send here as record. And now instead of having all this, we're going to say string name. We're going to cut this, and now you're going to put it here, string name. Let's cut the email. Oh, okay. It has even suggested for us automatically. So let's see. Are you coming again? Oh, this is not coming. Are you coming again? Okay, so this is not coming. Now let's see. Let's do it ourselves. Okay. And the next one, we have the password. We can close this and we can get rid of all this. Okay. But we're going to implement something in here. We're going to implement our models, required attributes, and some attributes in here. So maybe to add those attributes, we have to get it as a class. Okay, so that's the reason why we need to use this. And now this no more, you don't want to make it as a record. You want to have this as a class. Now in here, we want to specify an attribute on top. This is required. Maybe you can just grab this, and this is equal to string.empty. Same. And we're going to do same here. And on top of this, we have the required attributes. Here too, we have the same required attribute. And here we're going to have email address. Okay. And a password. We need one more. And that's going to confirm password. And now this, we're going to say confirm password. And now here we can compare. So we're going to have compare. And we're going to have name of. So name of password. We're comparing to this. Okay. And that is all. So this is what we need to create for this application or this registration model. Okay. We save this, and now we're going to the login. So we can just grab password and our email address and grab it from here. We create our login DTO. So add a class of this login DTO. Now we're going to add them here. So this is going to be public. Let's remove the necessary ones. Okay, so this is what we have. Now let's go in there and create our repo. So we go to our solution, and in here from the application, we need to also create a first. Let's create this and name it as contract. That's a folder. So in the contract folder, we're going to create only one contract, and that's one interface. Don't let me confuse you with the contracts and interface. Oh, see what I did. It's supposed to be, let's say this our user, and this is public. Okay, so we have to change the name of the interface, and we're going for login and registration. So this is task. Okay, so this task, maybe we can have, is it some model as a response to handle this, or we need to, okay, let's create a class, a DTO to as a response. So maybe we can have, this is DTOs. Let's add one here. Okay, we want to make this simple, and this is going to be response. Okay, so this is registration. Response. And now this registration response is going to be a public, and it's going to be record. And in here, we're going to have just maybe a message or a boolean. Let's have as a flag. And I believe you know this, and we have a message in here. Okay, let's set this to null, so default. Okay, now let's go back and let's clear all this because we don't need them. Let's go to the interface and task. We're going to say this is registration response, and you're going to have registration response. Okay, yeah. So this is register user. I want to make it at async. And now with this, we need a register DTO. Okay. As we've done for this, you know, with our login, we need to have a token. So maybe we want to have another class for this. And we're going to say that is login response. You know, there's going to be a record, and we need to clear this. And now in here, you're going to have the same flag. You're going to have string message. This is equal to null. And we're going to have string token. And it's equal to null as default. Let's remove all this. Now let's go back to the interface. And this is going to be task. Login response. And we're going to say login user async, whereby you pass in login DTO. We need these two interfaces, isn't it? Let's go to the repo, and there's going to be the infrastructure, and that's where we're going to have our implementation. So we're going to add a folder here, And let's say this is, let's make it as repo, not implementation. Now with this repository, we're gonna have a class. This is user repo, and this is gonna inherit from which one? Our user. Let's implement the interfaces in here. Can remove all this because we don't need them. So now we have this login and I register. What are you going to do? Login. So let's see, let's get user. And we need to create constructor for this. CTOR. Let's inject our appdb context. And we're going to say that appdb context dot users dot find async. But this async we need to find by ID. By here, let's use dot first or default. Of default async, so we specify our own what we need. So u dot, and now here we're going to check if the email is equal to login DTO dot email. So I want to find this. We check if this get user equal to null, then it means are not found. We can return new instance of login response. And on here we can specify false as a flag, and now the message here is going to be user not found. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Then in case user is found, then what are you going to do? We're going to check the password. So check password. That's equal to, you're gonna have, let's say bcrypt.net dot bcrypt dot verify password. Then we need the old password. So on check here, you can see that we need a string test and a hash. So what is the test here? Login DTO dot password, and now is the hash? Get user dot password. So we say if check password is true, okay, then we need to generate a token. So let's see, generate token, and it's gonna be JWT token. Now with this token, we're gonna pass in get user. We pass in this model. Then at the end, we're going to return new login, and this is true. Maybe you can say login successful, or then we're going to have so login successfully, and also we're going to have the token, and we can create, we can say token is equal to, okay, or we can call this method. This is going to return a string, and we can call this method in here. So we can get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. One line. We close this. Else, what do? You return the same thing. So in case this is false, then we can say return new login user, login response false. Okay, and now here we say invalid credentials, so we can just write something like that. That is all. Okay, Now we need to create a method to generate the token, but for now, let's come to registration. So you first want to check. So you see that here, we first want to check. So that's what we can do. We can just cut this. We want to apply drive principle. So let's cut this one. And now this is going to be, this is going to return application user. Then we say find user by email and passing string email. Now this is marking to this. So now this method, send this a task, it must be an async. So we can now call this method here. So instead of this, we can just assign this one. Now this method that we have is equal to await, call this, and pass in login DTO dot email. Let's check if this is not null. Okay. Now here we're going to also do same. So we can just copy this line of code and now put it here. We get a user. This must be an async. And now instead of this, you wouldn't say login, rather register DTO. So we say if user is found, if get user is not equal to null, it means user is registered already, then what can we do? We want to return this, but this is not login. This is registration. Okay. So we wouldn't say invite credential because we're not checking. So user already exists. Else, what are we doing? You want to encrypt the password. So we can say that user, or we can say appdb contest dot users dot add. Okay, then new application user. Then we can extend this. After that, we say await appdb contest dot save changes async. Then we return new registration model or response, whereby this we pass this as true, and we can say registration completed. Okay. So yeah, what are we doing? We need to specify ID is going to be automatically generated. So we need name. Now name is equal to the registration DTO.name. We can have email, and it's equal to registration email. We're going to have password. This password is equal to, we're going to have registration.password. Okay. But before we do this password, they're going to encrypt this. So you're going to say that bcrypt.net.bcrypt.hashpassword, then pass in the password. You see that? Yes. And after that, we save it because these are the properties that we created: name, email, and password. That's what we need. Then we save it and I return. That's what that we are doing. Very simple. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to work on the generate token. If the password is correct or it matches with what we have already, then we're going to generate the token. So before we generate the token, we have to register JWT service, and we have to create our audience, our issuer, and the key. Okay, so let's get this job done. So there's one package that we need to install to the infrastructure. So I click on infrastructure, go to dependencies, and let's manage the packages. Let's manage the packages. So okay, so in here we're going to write JWT bearer. This is a package that we need to install. It is coming from the Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Authentication, this one. So install. So this is done. Now let's go to the service container that we created. And now in here, we're going to register authentication service. So within the service in here, we're going to have service.authentication. Then in here, we're going to also specify the JWT bearer, whereby in this, we are going to specify all the necessary service that we need. So add JWT bearer, and as you can see from here, we need issuer, audience, lifetime, and now we want to grab the configuration from this. Okay, because here, we injected the configuration with an instance, and that is where we are using it from. And once you have this, we need to specify the key, and now the issuer and the audience in the app.json. Okay, so let's actually do that. But before we do this, let's register the repo that we created. So maybe down here, we can say services.add_scope and user, and this is user repo. Okay, so this is working. Let's go to the solution. We go to the API, and like we see from the program, on top of this, let's add app.use. We have authentication on top, then we have authorization. Okay. So in order to specify all this, we go to the API, app.json. Now here, we need to specify the key, the issuer, and the audience. For now, we want to maintain the IP for the same project as an audience and the issuer. So from the application, properties, line settings, we can grab the HTTPS, that is 7044 for HTTPS. We go to the app settings, and let's replace them. This key should be a random keys, and now here it should be not less than 16 characters. So this is around 40, so you can just create your own key. This is what you're going to use to create the token. Okay, so this is very important, and you must keep it secret. Okay, so we have this set. We've added the service, and now this is working. So the next thing to go in there and now create our repo. Not the repo, generate token. And we can find that in the user repo, where's mine. So we can create it at this method. So this is a method, and I'm going to return string. So in this method, we can just quickly create our own, and that's what we are doing. So when you check this, we create a security key. We get it from the configuration, and now with this configuration, to get this, we need to also inject our configuration here. We get configuration, we get the key that we stated, and in here we get our credentials. So these are credentials from the key that we created or we retrieve in here. We set as a credential. Okay, using this algorithm, HMAC-SHA-256. And also we specify our claims. So within the claims, let me make this as user. So we have the name identifier, and that is the user ID. From the application layer, the application model, do we have user dot ID? Okay, dot toString, since it is integer, we need to convert to a string. We have the name, and I have the email. So these are claims that we want to use to generate the token. Aside from that, we get the issue at the audience. We specify our claims in here. We add an expiry date of the token as 5 days. Then there's a signing credential as we got here. At the end, we want to return the token in this format as a string. So this return a string. As you know, the method here is return a string, and now everything is solved. Okay, what left here is to create our controller. So let's go to the endpoint, the UI. inside the controller, we're going to create this. A controller in this. And there's going to be an API, empty one. And you want to say user controller. You want to create constructor for this. Then we're going to inject our repo. So we're going to consume the application layer. So our user, say user, control period, create and assign field. Then the first method here, we're going to log in. So let's say this is HTTP post. I'll specify a new route as login. This is public async task. Let's be specific on action result type. So action result. And now we are returning login result. So log user in. And now we need login DTO. And in here, we need to results equal to await user dot login async. We pass in the DTO. After that, you want to return result. By this result, it is not the state that you want to make it is okay. Okay, then let's copy the same thing in here. Next line, we're going to say what? That's fine. Register. So register user. And now you know what? There's going to be what? Register DTO. Register DTO. So copy this, chip it in here, and I'll change this to register. And that is all. Let's build this application. Yeah, so this is done. Now we're going to run this app and test it out. Yeah, this is ready. So now let's see. Click on login. So if I click on execute this, let's see what happens. So I have user not found. Sorry. Now let's register user. So the same thing. Confirm password. We're going to register this user in here. So registration completed. Now let's log user in. Now you must see the token. Yes. So this is a token. We can just grab this token. Let's go to jwt.io. And now in here, let's paste the token. You know, we have our string. There's our username, email. There's an ID. And there's an issuer. And that's an audience. There's an expiry date. So if I click on it, we added 5 days. So you can see we have March 14th. You see, so we have these 5 days being added. And that's fine. Today is 9th, so we have March 14th. 9 plus 5 is not 14th? Yes. We have it in here. Okay. Today is working, isn't it? So when you go in there and check our system, you can see that what we did here to the UI, we did not actually work massively on the UI. What we did here is just consume what we have created. So anytime that you want to change the UI, it's very simple. You can just change the controller, add the controller, and also add all the service or register all the service in here. And that's all that you need to do. Very simple. Yes, I believe by now you can consume this in your API, not in your Blazor assembly, isn't it? Good. If you think you cannot do it, okay, put that in the comment section and I have a separate video to show you how to do that as well. Now let's go to this. Let's go to this our controller in here. Where is weather forecast controller? We want to make this as required. Okay, so here this authorize. So now we have this. Let's refresh this app and then check it out. So let's test this weather forecast. So try this out. Execute. Now you see we have 401. It means we are an unauthorized user. We are not authorized to access this content. Okay. In order to get this, we need to have a section or a feature that we can pass. We can log in, get a token, and now authenticate ourselves and I get access to this. So let's do that. We go to the program.cs, or even where we have the UI. So solution, you go to program.cs file from the API. Since we have the controller and we have the Swagger registered in here, we can then specify maybe this Swagger. Let's remove this one, and now let's add this. So we specify an option to this, and now this option you want to add the version. This view one, maybe you can give it any version of your choice. There's a title and description. This is for Swagger doc. Aside from that, we add in the security definition. The type here, the scheme is with bearer, and where do you want to specify it? That is the format is JWT. The scheme is a bearer, and as an API key, the name is authorization from the header. Also, when it comes here, we want to put it inside the header, and now this is going to be the header session name, and there's a format or the scheme. Okay, and the type of the format here is what? The JWT, and in that we have it in here. Okay, so that's all that we're doing. Now let's save this, rerun this again. That's fine. So you can see that we have this feature set up here. So this small feature is what we added. A lot of code, small feature. Okay, so let's try to log in again. But before that, let's test this and see and confirm that yes, we are not authorized. Now let's log in. So we've registered already. We're going to log in now. So we are in. Let's grab our token. Then let's go to the authorize. And now the value here is we're going to pass in this value. Okay. So you type in our bearer space, then paste on this one. Click on authorize. Then you can close this. Now check it out. Click on execute. And now you have it. So now we are going to consume this token. And after consuming this token, we try to get the claims from this token and set this to the application as a UI in the Blazor WebAssembly. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and then that is the project that we built. We're going to add a WebAssembly app. So click on new, then add project, and now with this we are going to add Blazor WebAssembly. So we have WebAssembly in here. So that is the name, Blazor WebAssembly to this. .NET 8 for authentication is none, because we have our own authentication system that we're going to implement. Click on create to get this project created and added. Yeah, so this is ready. So when you check the solution, you can see that you have the WebAssembly in here, then you have your web API. Okay, so in this we need to build this project to update the dependencies to make this app complete. So let's update it. I'll click on this, and now let's build the project. So you can see that the project is succeeded. As you can see from here, it is built. Then we need to add the project reference. Right click on dependencies, go to project references, and in here we're going to add the application layer. So let's click on OK to add this project. So after doing this, we need to create a service, whereby this service is going to be in the composition of interface and implementation. Now this service, we are going to use an HTTP client, and in that we're going to have a post as JSON async, so we can post to the controller endpoint that we created. And now within that endpoint, it has a model to return. We can return it as a general response or login response. And in that, we create our authentication state provider. We register it, and now we try to log in and set the claims. That is all that we need to do. A very simple one, okay? So let's start. We need to create our service first, and the service needs to be created in the application layer. So from this, we have our contract, we have our DTOs. We're going to add another folder to this, and maybe we can name this as services. So within this services folder, we're going to add another folder, and maybe this is going to be authentication. So let's create our interface in here. So interface, and now this is going to be iAccount. So that's an interface. And this should be public, as you know. Yes. So within these two methods, or within this interface, we need the two interfaces here. We need this register account async and also login account async. Now this needs general response, so this is coming from general response from the application layer. Let's check it out. So we go to the application layer, our DTOs, and here we have register response. So it's not general response. This is register. It is limited to registration. So this is register response. Register or registration response. Yes. So in here, we need a register user DTO, and that is the model. And for the login response to, we need a login DTO. Okay, so that's all we need. We need just two methods in here, very simple one. Okay, we then save this. We're going to create the interface, not the implementation. So right click on the same services, authentication. Now let's add account service. And now this account service needs to inherit from iAccount. So let's implement the interfaces in here. We need to create constructor, CTOR. Now in that, this must be public, and I believe by now you know this. Let's inject our HTTP client. Create an instance of this, control period. Let's create an assigned field. We can also use primary constructor, but for now we are not working on that. Let's keep going. Okay, so login account, we're going to make a post. So we say var response is equal to await HTTP client. So this HTTP client, this client. Yeah, so let me copy this. Dot, then it's post as JSON async, and in here we need to specify API, and that is authentication slash login. Is it login account or just login? So you can just cross check from here from the API controller. That is the user, even though authentication is user. So you see that's user login. Okay. So it is user and just login. Aside from that, we pass in the model. So let's get the response. So this could be results. Now, since you want to grab it not in an in a string format, we want to grab it in the model format. Okay, so we need to convert this, and here we can talk of dot read from JSON async. Then let's specify the response type. The response type here, it is login response, and at the end we can return results. We're going to do same, so I'm going to copy this. Then inside the registration, I'm going to paste this one. This must be an async, and I want to check the controller. So when you check this controller, this must be user controller. Okay, so user controller, and when you check in here, you can see that we have user/register. So let's go in there and do same. So user/register, then passing a model, and now here it is returning a registration response. And that is all that we need to do in a very simple one. Copy and paste. Okay, so we are done with our service. We have to register the service. So we're going to consume this. Let's go to the Blazor app, and here you have the Blazor WebAssembly, and that is in over here from the program.cs. We can now register this here. Then that is an I account, and this is account service. Okay, so now that this is done, we can now log in. We can register because we've created the endpoint, and also we have a service whereby we inject an HTTP client to make a request. Now, when we receive it, we are returning. When we return, we need to return to the authentication state provider. So you must create an instance of the auth state provider, and we can name it any name at all that you feel you want to give it today. Okay, so but I'm going to give mine as custom authentication state provider, so that as soon as you get the source code, you know what you're going for. Okay, what it means. So we're going to create a class for that, and this class, I'm going to make it related, specifically related to the app. So in here, from the web app or the Blazor WebAssembly, I'm going to create a folder, and I name this as states. So with this state, I need to add a class. Now this class is going to be custom authentication state provider. So this class needs to inherit from authentication state provider. But since we haven't installed it, so we need to do that. We need to install Microsoft.ASP.core.component.authorization. So let's wait and install this package. Yeah, so this has been installed, and now here this is an abstract, so we need to implement the class. So we have this in here. We would also need to save the token somewhere, so that anytime that I want to make a request, we add the token to the header. Okay, so in that we can use cookie storage. We can use local storage. So for now, let's use the local storage. And in order to use the local storage, we can use a package created by Crescenti, and that's a Blazor.local storage. So let's also install this package. and right click on the Blazor assembly dependencies, and then you get packages, and here you're going to install Blazor the local storage. So that is this by Crescenti. Click on and install. Okay, so this is done. Let's register the service. So it's gonna be builder.services.add Blazor local storage. Let's see for Blazor local storage. So .add Blazor local storage. Yeah, so we add the service and we are good to go. Okay, so in the custom, we first need to create an instance of identity user, and we're going to be null for default one. So let's create a claim principal, and now within this we need to, for this we need to create a constructor and inject our local storage. Local storage service. So create this and assign field, and we can just create a key here. So private constant string. So local storage key. This is auth. So here, when the app gets loaded, the first time this method gets called, we want to retrieve the local storage. So let's say there's going to be string. Say token is equal to await local storage dot get item as string async. Then we pass in the local storage key. So we can now check this must be an async task. Okay, so while you have in this, now check. So here we can check here, so not even await. If string dot is null or empty, then we're going to find the token that you want to return. Authentication task from results. Then we pass in this one, anonymous. That is the instance that we created here. It means the user is not registered. So if token is not null, then we want to get all the claims. So let's have public or private, and this could return. Let's create a module for this. We want to return the name and now the email, isn't it? So maybe we can have task. This is string. You want name and our email. So here we can say get claims, and now you pass in the token. So within this, we need to now check if user or if this is equal to null. So string dot is null or empty, pass in the token, then you want to return null. So in case it is not null, then we want to check the token. So let's get all our claims. So this package we need to install system.identity.models. Let's find the latest version and install. Now we need to pass in this token. Okay, so let's add in here JWT token. Then we get our token in here. Okay, now within the token we want to get maybe user ID. We want to get only username and email. So we can extract the claims from this. We get the name, we get the email, and at the end we are going to return. We need to return this. Return, the first one is name, and I return email. Okay, you can make this as static. Then when you come here, we're gonna say that var, we can use tuple, so we're gonna say name and email is equal to, and here we call the method as get claims. We pass in the token. We have our claims here. So we can check if name, we've checked here already, or we can check if string.name is empty or string dot is null empty, talking about the email. Then maybe we can have in a mind of return the same thing. So we can grab this and I'll paste it here. Although it won't be null, but let's check. Okay. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do here is, after we get our claims, we need to set the claims. So how do we set the claims? So we can now create a simple method, another method here. Then we check, we get the claim principal, set the claim, return the name and the email. If they are now, return this new. In case they are not, then set the claims type to name and I'll pass in the value. So in here, we're going to return. So we can say that var claims is equal to, then set claim, then pass in this name and email. Okay, so here we can say that if string.empty2, we are still going to check. So claims, so you can have claims dot, so here we can have, we're going to retrieve the user claim. So here, this is what we can do. We can say that if claims is null, then we want to return same, although it won't be null, but we're going to return. But in case it is not, then we're now going to set the claim. Then in here we need to, so we can include this else. Then we want to return type some result. Then we pass in the claim that we retrieve from here. We save it. So all that you're doing here is we get the token from the local storage. We make sure it is not null. If it is not null, we want to get all the claims, that is an email and password. Not the email and password, email and name. When we get the email and name, we want to set the claims. We pass in the same parameters, and now we return from the claim that we have in here to this authentication state. Okay, now we have this done. What if in case I want to log in for the first time, I need to now set the claims and also set the token to the local storage. So let's have a method to also handle that. And this is going to be maybe public async task, and let me call this update authentication states. And now within this, I'm going to pass in string token. I like to use JWT token. Let me be specific here. Okay, so in here I'm going to check, so if string dot is null or empty, talking about the JWT token, what do I want to do? I want to make sure if this is not null or empty, but in case it is, what do I need to do? Then I'm going to use await local storage dot remove item async, and now I need local storage key. Okay, so when I'm done, what I need to do here is I have to notify the app to re-render. and in that I can use this simple method to do that. What I need to do here is I need to create claims in here. So let's say I have a claim on top. So there's going to be claims. So I initialize it in here beautifully. Now in case we have this, then I need to get the claim. So I'm going to say so var, and I need name and email. Then I'm going to say it's equal to get claims. I'll just call this method and pass in JWT token in case I get this. So if string.empty dot is not for this name, or string.empty dot is null or empty. Okay, so if this I want to return, you see, but in case it is not, then this is what I want to do. I want to now get claims. So once here I get the claims, I need to now set it. So how do I set it? It's the same method in here, so set claims. So I need to copy this. So I'm going to say set claims is equal to, then I call this method, and I need to specify in the name and now the email. Okay, so this can be the next line. And now here, so if set claim is null, then I want to return as well. But this, it won't be null. We are checking. Okay, else what do? We notify this and I pass in the claim that we have in here. In case this is also null, claims is also null, I'm going to pass in here. And now when claims is null, it means the token is still going to be null. And if the token is null, then it tells you that here we're going to return anonymous. Anonymous is a new instance of the claim identity, and it tells the user that hey, you're not registered, so you need to register. Okay, so that's all that we need to do in here. Okay, so now let's save this. Let's go to the web assembly. Now from the pages, you need to create pages in here. That's the form. So with this, you're going to install a package created by Netcode-Hub myself, and let's use that, okay, because it's a floating div and we can use that to use in an edit form for the login and now registration. So we can do that from the WebAssembly. When I click on dependencies, go to manage NuGet packages, and in here just type in Netcode-Hub, and now we need component the validations, this package. So let's install this. The current version is 1.0.1 as I speak. Maybe there will be a feature update which will move to 1.0.2. So let's see, for this we install. After this successfully installed, we can check from the dependencies, packages, and like you see we have it in here. Okay, let's go to our page. From the pages folder, we can now create a login page here, and now let's call this as login page. The route of this app is going to be login. Okay, so in here we can have, okay, so we have our login. Let's include a namespace, so at netcode, and this will be using, so at using Netcode-Hub dot packages so dot components dot validations dot on input. Now in here we can straight ahead, so let's have our div class. Now let's say this is row. We're going to have the closing, then in here we have our div class again, and this is column LG5. Okay, so in here we need to have the floating test, and now with the floating test maybe we can specify this. I want us to use, let's close like this. Now get rid of this. Okay, so we need label, and now this label, this is gonna be, this is login, so we have our email address. We can have a placeholder, and maybe John Doe at mail.com. That's a placeholder. Okay, aside from that, you can specify the type in here. The type is email address. Then we need a password, so we're going to use same. Label is going to be password, and we don't want to have a placeholder here. The type is password. You see, this is very simple, isn't it? Yes, very simple. Then we have our button, so we can also have class in here, and this is form control. We can have MB3 class as form control, MB3. Then in here we can have our edit form, and our edit form we can have the model as maybe login model, unvalid submit. You want to say login async. So here we have our data annotations by data, and now we go in and add these two forms. Okay, aside from it, we can have our button, and this button we have the class as btn, so btn primary, and so the type of this button is just submit login. Okay, so that's all that we need to do. We can decide to add a validation message, or we can use a validation summary. So maybe down here we can add a summary, so MB3, then down we can use the summary. Okay, and now here we can have test danger and list style or test declaration as none. That's one. You can actually format this. Okay, now once we have this simple form, when you come here we need to create a method to this. So you're going to say async task login, and also login model. So you must have a login DTO, and this coming from this. We say login model is equal to new, so we have this set. Okay, now here the service that we created and registered, we can inject it. So in order to do that, go to the import.razor, And maybe in here we can talk about not using. Let's inject I account. Then we say this is account service. Now this account service, we can just grab this. We go to the login page, and now here we say results is equal to await account service dot login async, passing this login model. Now the response, we can check if results dot flag, that is true. That is where you want to specify this. What you want to do, you want to update the custom auth state. So you want to call this method, and I'm passing the token. Okay. So let's go to the import, and maybe in here we can inject the authentication state provider that we created. So this is the default one, not the one that we created. Sorry, I don't want to confuse you. This is the default one that we inherited from. It is not what we created. Now let's go to, we say this auth state provider, we go to the login. And now in the login, we can just call a simple method to actually do that. So we can use, if the response is true, we create a custom auth state, then we're going to use a custom auth state provider that we created from the state folder. Then in here, we pass in result.token. Then at the end, we want to navigate. But before we do that, we have to inject nav manager. So here, maybe we can put that in the import, and we can say that use this nav manager. When you go to the login, nav manager to navigate to the login. That's the home page. Okay. Then we have false to true, so it can check for the authentication state of the user. Okay, so that's all that we need to do in here. In case it is false, maybe we can have a string message. So this is equal to string.empty. So when the page starts to load, we can say this is equal to null. And in case you have any issue, that is else, then we want to say that message is equal to results.message. And now we need to display this. So maybe on top here, we can display this message. Okay, so maybe here, we can have span or div. And this will be alert info. And let's display the message on top here. We say MB is 3. Okay. So we have this. Now let's try to log in and see. But before we log in, we have to configure CORS. Since we are connecting from one port to another port, we need to configure CORS. So let's save this. Let's go to the solution from the API. Where is it? This is the API, right? So go to properties, line settings, and in there, have you seen this HTTPS? There's a port, so we're going to grab this. We go back to the WebAssembly. From here, where is it? Have you found yours? Okay, program.cs file. And now from the base URI, we're going to remove all this. We don't need this anymore. Let's pass in this. Save it. And let's use cascading auth states. So add cascading auth states. Now when you add this, you can decide not to surround the route with the cascading authentication states, okay, because this is the service that you're adding, and it works the same. I think so. Yes. Now let's go to the API. Program.cs file. We need to add CORS, so we can add CORS to app.use CORS CORS. cross origin resource sharing. Okay, now with this course we need to specify some things in it, so we can just remove this and I replace this one. And here I don't need this. We don't need it. Okay, so you want to allow header, I want to allow methods, and so here we're going to change it with the port of the client. So from the dependencies, from line settings, we have this as 7044. This is not the talking about WebAssembly. So WebAssembly, where is this one? It's here, yes. And now we're going for the HTTPS 7270. Grab that, go to the program, and in here paste it. Okay, save this, and I think everything is alright. Everything gonna be fine. What do you think? Are we missing something? As soon as you successfully log in, we have to get the token set to the local storage. Okay, let's try this out and see. So Blazor Assembly, run this, and I'm going to run the API too. So you run both projects. You can use set multiple projects as startup and run together, or you can do what I'm doing. Choose one that you want and follow it. Okay, so we wait for the client. There's a client, and where is our API? Let's wait for the API. API to is in here, and that is it. Okay, we have an error here. Let's go to inspect and check it out. No service for this hosted provider has been registered. Yes, I knew it. So we go to the program, and now we need to register this. So builder.services.add scope. Then here we need to add authentication state provider, and let's add a custom auth state provider. Let's rerun this up. Alright, so it is ready. And this I'm going to do, let's navigate to login. Let me right click and go to inspect and check if after a call is being made. Whoa, we have an error here. Let's check it out. So required value for this. We did not. Yes, I believe you did the necessary corrections, isn't it? You go to the login page and we did not bind. Yes, see, did not bind it. And here you need this at bind value, and this is login model dot email, and now the same thing applies to this at bind value login model dot password. All set and done. So this is ready again. Right click on inspect elements. We go and check for a call. Now here you must have a call be made here. We have to see it here. And also when we check the application and check the local storage, we have to see the token with the key known as auth, and you have to get it here. Well, let's check it out. So let's go to, and the route is login. So we are in, and now let's have user at example.com, The password is user@123. I think so, because when we check the API, login, try this out. Okay, so it is string, and the user@example.com, and the password is string. Okay, so this is string. Now let's click on this. Now let's see. Login, a call has to be made, and now here, yes. So you can see now the app has reloaded. Let's check from app, but we did not see the key. You see, we did not see the key. So although we logged in, but we haven't seen the key in be set. Let's check the auth state. So from here, after we set it, we need to set this to the local storage. So you're gonna say await local storage service dot set token, and now what you need to provide the key, local storage key, and the token itself. That's all we need to do. We missed this out. It is not just token, it is rather JWT token. Okay, let's reload this and check it out again. Now let's go to inspect, and now we're going to the same place. That's the application. So we check this application from this end. We make sure we have local storage open. Currently it is blank, it's empty. Okay, so let's navigate to, that's a login. Now once you log in, please do check here and see whether you're going to have a key being stored. Now you have an email set already, credentials. Yes, we have it. App, yes, that is this one. Have you seen? So this working now, we are logged in. So how do we get the user? Maybe you want to display the name or the email here. Is it possible? Yes, of course. Quickly we can do that here. Let's go to the routes, and this is going to be the main layout. And now here maybe you can display button. So this is going to be, instead of this about, you're going to say logout. And now with this logout, it's going to be, let's actually create a page for that. So this is logout. Okay, and this should be okay. Let's maintain it. Let's also have one, and let's also display. So we're gonna have this, and this is gonna display the name. So you know, this is gonna be for authorize. So if you're authorized, that is only when you see this. But in case you are not, then you know what it means. So this, what do you think this will be here, isn't it? We also gonna have at contest dot user dot identity dot name. You want to display that, okay? And in here, I think it's better that we put this in a span. Then let's have class test muted, maybe margin 2, etc. Okay, you can have maybe ml2, ml2. We have our contest, so we want to display the name. Then we have our logout. So when this is clicked, you're going to logout page. In case you are not, then we want to have this. If it is not login, then it is register. And now we're going to login, and now this we're going to register. You see that? So when you check the login, we don't have register yet, but soon we're going to have it soon. Okay, now let's save all this. Let's see if the page will reload itself. If not, then we do it manually. Now we know that we have this working. We can close this. Let's reload it ourselves. We have an issue here. Let's check this issue out. Okay, so we need to add authorization call. No. And this could come from the program.cs file. This solves the problem. So /login. And for now, we are logged in, so we have logout. You see that? Oh, we must separate this. There must be a space. There must be a space. So login, that's the main layout. That's where there must be a space here. Okay. So maybe this is what we can do. Let's set margin to 2. And maybe padding to also 2. So we can have a separation from logout and this name. You see that? But I think we've done it. So now if I click on logout, nothing happens. So you can see now we are logged in. We have the name in here, and we have this. We can also display the email if you want to do that. Let's see. So maybe once you have this, if you want to display the email, store at contest.user.identity. Do you have email? No, we don't. So we need to use claims. So .claims here, .first or default. Then where claims max to claims.type is equal to claim types, and this is coming from dots and then dot email. So claim types dot, we have to do it well. Okay. So claim types dot email. We want to grab the value. So we're going to have the email and we're going to have the password. Why I keep saying password? We're going to have the email and the name. Okay. In this. So yeah, so this is going to display us display the email to us. You're going to have the name on top. You're going to have the email in this bracket. Okay, now let's work on the logouts. So if I click on logout, it is going to logout component. So in here, we can just create a logout. And this will be logout. So on top here, we have to specify the route. And that is logout. When the page initializes, so we can use override on initialized async. We want to go to login. And now within this login, we're going to copy this. we go to the logout page and now add it here. So instead of passing the token, passing null. So we need to include the state reference. This must be an async, and that is all. Okay, now let's work on the registration. We need to check the registration component or the registration DTO. What are the things that we need? So registration DTO, we need just email, name, email, and password, and confirm password. So let's go to the pages. Let's add the component here, and this is register page. Now within this, you can go to login, grab everything here, and now come here and now paste this. All that we need to do here is change this to register, and that's all. This is not login async, register async. This is not login modal, register modal. We need to include name, email. So let's add one to this. Let's add one to this for confirm password. You see? So this is going to be password, and now here is going to be confirm password. We can add confirm to this password. This is name, and now we can just type in full name. So example is John Doe, so we can have this as an example, and the type is test. That's all that we need to do. It's very simple one. So all you need to do here is register modal. We have to replace it with this one, and that is all. When you come here, instead of the DTO login, we have register DTO. So we have to just replace this here, and now we copy this into this. This is not login, it is register account async. So if this is true, we want to navigate to login. So go to login. In case it is not, so you're going to say that if this is false, this is what you want to do, or we can check if it's true. Okay, so now that we have this, then we can use this else and then get rid of this. If it's true, navigate to login. If it is false, display the message. Okay. Just save this. Let's close this and open it again. Yes, and there's no error in here. Just that we need to include the DTO, register DTO or registration DTO. Want to check it is register user DTO. So where is the register? Let's go to solution, register page, and we use this. That is all we need to do. Very simple one. You see? Now let's have a method for this. Register async, and now that's all. Okay, so let's run this and check it out. Yeah, so you can see that we have it here. We have the name, we have the email in here. So we are logged in. Yes. Now if I click on log out, see what happens. So we are out. Right click on this. Let's check the local storage and see. You can see we have login and register. If I need to check the local storage, do we have anything? Any token? Let's have a look. Oh, nah, there's nothing there. Yeah, it is off. So when you click on login, maybe register, you're into the page, you can register. Okay, let's try one and see. So I'm going to say this is Netcode-Hub. Then email is admin@gmail.com. Let's say password is admin@123. So it's admin@123. One thing about this is, using this floating text by Netcode-Hub, it does the validation progressively. So once you type, it does the validation. So let's check it out. We have to get a call and a response from an API. So let's say from the network tab, click on, change it. So that's your tag, change it. So you can see register and our registration completed, right? So we are in here, and I want to check this. You can see that we have let's see the payload. That's the payload. Let's see the response. There's a response. Okay, so it's through, registration completed. Now I go to login. That's fine. Let's log in and see. Now we want to use this admin. Click on login. Yeah, so we have it being rendered. And let's see, are you going to have Netcode-Hub /admin as Gmail or email? Yes, we have. And we are in. Okay. So the next thing is, how do you make a call with this? This is getting it from not the API. You want to get it from the API, and the token that we have received, we want to add this token to the header so we can make a call. Because when you check here, check this. If I click on get this, try this out, without specifying, see, 401, because there's no token attached to the header. So first of all, let's call that, okay? And on the route of this, you're calling from the web API. Let's say we go to this. And now in here, from the Blazor assembly, from weather forecast, not the weather forecast, weather.razor, we have HTTP client injected. And now here, we are not calling the file. You're not calling, go back. Where is the weather? Is missing. Okay, so you see, let me go back again and check it out. So when you see here, we have HTTP client injected. It looks like you are calling from an API, but we are not. It's just a static file. So we're going to remove this. And let's check the route of this. Not this one, the API. And now here, we can copy this. Go back. And now paste this here. Okay, so 7044 as a port, weather forecast. We want to get this. Now with this, let's try and see. We must have the 401. Although we are logged in, we can click on this, inspect. Let's go to network tab. Click on this. We have an error. Yes, I know. What is the status code? 401. You see that? It means we do not have access to this because the call that was made does not have a header. Not actually any header. Okay, talking about authorization header. Check here and see. Check the call from the header. You can see that from here, there's a response. check the request. We don't have any authorization. You see this? And there's no token also added. So that's the reason why we did not get this. Let's create this. So now to do this, first we need to inject. We have a local storage injected already. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to say that string token is equal to await local storage service. Okay. So we have to inject our local storage here. Maybe you can just move it to the you can move it to the import.razor to inject it once and use it multiple or 3 application. But for now, let's use this. So inject local storage. And this is coming from Blazor.local storage. Then let's give it an instance of local storage service. So now we grab this, and here we say local storage service dot get item as string. What is the name here? Let's pass in that is an auth. Okay. So when we have this, what you're gonna do here is you're gonna say HTTP client dot default request header dot authorization is equal to new system.net.http.header.authorization header value. Okay, so in here we need to specify the schema, and the schema is bearer. Aside from specifying the schema, what do you do again? What is a parameter? And that is a token. This is what we need to do. So this is very simple, isn't it? Yes. Now let's save this. Let's rerun this and check it out. Okay, so this is ready again. Let's go to inspect element, and in here from the call that we're going to make, let's see counter home, click on that forecast. So now we have it. Now check it out. You can see the status code is 200. It is fetch type, and now if I click on this, you can see now we have authorization header. This is the schema or the scheme, that is for the bearer. That's a parameter. That's a token. So the call is being made once you have the token attached to the header. That is all. Thank you so much for watching, and I think you've learned something here as well. The source code of this project will be available. I'm going to catch you up again. Till then, take care.